Week 9 in the books, Drew. We've got some teams still alive in the playoff hunt and some other teams not so alive in the playoff hunt. Is this the week that we actually learn if a team is actually a playoff contender?
Some of them, yeah. And then some you're really questioning. This is the week that just throws everybody off.
Yeah, there were some... We did not pick very well, as it turns out. Not our best week.
The guys during the offseason did.
They killed it. I know.
They did well.
It's almost like they knew what they were talking about. And we get into the season, we get distracted, we fall in love with all this hype, like it's a backup quarterback, there's no way they win, and then they win. So, interesting games, and it starts, I think, with our 8 o'clock games. Why don't we get into that? Welcome into Sports Around the Bar. As always, I am Jake, your bartender. This is Drew here on Center Stool, and guys, let me just say, I shed a tear with the Titans loss. But we're not talking about them. Right now, we're talking about the game going on in London. Let's talk Houston and Jaguars. Drew, what are your impressions from this game?
Oh, I think, well, first of all, that the Texans totally took it upon themselves to sit there and say that the J.J. Watt loss was not going to sit there and ruin their season. They came out and played, in my opinion, a decent team, a team, the Jaguars defense that seems to be able to play well. The offense has played better in these last couple of weeks, and they dominated them. And to be honest with you, as much as I've been on that Minshew bandwagon, hoping this guy can succeed, what I saw from him today was probably one of the worst performances I've seen him do so far.
It's almost like someone told you he's not as good as the hype was. And again, I still don't think Minshew's a bad player. I think as far as backup quarterbacks go, this is like the dream scenario where he can come in and he can win you some games. He's 4-4 as a starter. Yeah. I don't think Minshew's a bad player. Maybe this is a case, and I talked about this before, of a young quarterback having to travel a long way for what's essentially a road game in the NFL. Yeah. And just not matching up against a good playoff caliber team like the Houston Texans are right now. Sharif, good to see you, man. Tyler says, what a Sunday. I know, absolutely wild. Bunch of upsets. Chris also says, not his best week either, but that happens every time you lose a starting quarterback, throw it out the window, man. That's all I can say. Don't worry about it. I know you're a Colts fan. I wouldn't be too hard on the team. Hopefully, it is just a knee sprain like they're talking about with Brissett, and he's able to come back in a couple weeks, and the Colts can stay on track here. As for the Texans game, though, Sharif says Deshaun Watson. Is that enough said?
He also said it's blasphemy that we're on. Show's got to go on, man. Show's got to go on. We dedicate...
Drew's led it up into multiple Chiefs starting on Sunday night now.
We dedicate our time with you guys, and we sacrifice football time. Just the way it goes.
Absolutely. Don't worry. We're going to catch all of it anyway. Ian says, Drew, you have to listen to George Michael since you need more faith in Kansas City. Oh, man. And... you guys were calling me crazy for not taking the Titans. I'm just saying. Speaking of faith, couldn't take the Dolphins. I couldn't pull the trigger, Drew. I was saying Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to win one of these games. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I couldn't pull the trigger there.
Matthew's saying don't even get him started on the Vikings game. Man, it was a good game. Even if the Chiefs would have lost, I still would have said that was a good game.
Street says the Browns suck. Ian saying, how about them Steelers? I think they both agree on that one. Going back to the Jaguars, though, we do need to talk about this. The real takeaway from this game, in my opinion, is what happens when Nick Foles comes back, because there's rumors that it might be as early as next week. They're talking he might already be ready to come back. Do you sit a guy like Minshew after this kind of start, or do you listen to Doug Marrone, who's saying it's not about one game, it's about a body of work? Because over the course of a body of work, I think we saw a decent kind of performance out of Minshew. Do you bench him, or do you for Nick Foles when he comes back, or do you let the young player, the rookie, kind of keep rolling?
It's so hard to make that decision. I get it's not just one game. You got to look at all the games he played. But when you look at this game in particular, when you watch him, he's consistently underthrowing the ball. He's consistently overthrowing the ball, and sometimes in clean pockets. And that's one of the biggest issues. And let's also not forget they had a little bit of a run game too. I don't know what did you write it down? Did you give?
They didn't have a significant running game, but who did was the Texans with Carlos Hyde.
No, I know that.
They only had like 42 out of.
But they got away from it and just started chucking the ball over the place. And
Fournette only had like 42.
And Minshew was off. Like and that's if that is your game plan is when the run game isn't going to keep you involved in the game and you want to start chucking it, then Nick Foles becomes your quarterback.
I think so too. I think I'm going back to Nick Foles. You need to figure out if that $80 million you gave him with that massive guarantee, which for a quarterback is still semi-cheap, but you gave this guy way too much money to bench him for a guy that's 4-4 as a starter and still is up and down. I think you can kind of evaluate for the rest of the season, and next year you can decide, okay, maybe we go Minshew, maybe we go Nick Foles. But I think right now he's got to be your starter when you pay him that kind of money. You got to see if he's going to be worth it, because it's not going to be a contract you can escape unless you trade him to Denver or something like that. Yeah. Nick Foles is going to be there for the next 3 years.
Chris says Pats will lose tonight. Hashtag Ravens Nation. I know Sharif loves to hear that too. Tyler says the legend has it. Gardner Minshew can throw a mountain over a football.
Well, he certainly didn't bring it today, right? Well, he definitely could throw a football over Jaguar receivers' heads. He managed to have that on.
It was in London.
Yeah.
He can only do that in American football.
Yeah, you can't do it on the other side of the world. I understand. I totally understand it. It's something about the hemispheres. You can only do it in the Western one.
Right.
At the very least, I think, again, you still have one of the best backup quarterbacks in Gardner Minshew if Nick Foles is going to be the guy. I think you got to go back to him. And this isn't because I've been down on Minshew. If he played a little bit better, I'd say stick with the hot hand. Like, if we're talking about 5-3 as a starter.
If we're talking about the kid from Carolina.
Kyle Allen.
Right. If we're talking about that, where
he's had some bad games. He's had a couple 3-interception games, but for the most part, you're seeing solid performance.
Your team is winning around him.
Right.
That's what's important. And even though the Jags have seen upswing with Minshew playing, it's not like he's sitting here 7-2.
Absolutely.
And that's where you have to come in. If you're talking about the body of work, there's a reason you brought Nick Foles in. He's a former
Super Bowl
MVP. You know, he's the reason that he is the reason why the Eagles won during the offseason, the postseason of that year.
And almost took him again. I mean, let's face it. Again,
yeah.
Ball slipping through Alshon Jeffrey's hands. If they hang on to that, we don't have that kind of controversy with the Saints and the Rams. They would have got to match up with it, and any given Sunday, nobody knows what would have happened. I think when you look at where the Jaguars are right now, especially with them chasing the division at 4-5, it doesn't really pay that much to keep rolling with Gardner Minshew. Unless your plan is just long-term, he's our starting quarterback, and maybe we deal Nick Foles to someone like Denver, or if someone misses out on a rookie quarterback next year. Yeah. If that's what you're going to do, maybe you stick with Minshew, but for the most part, healthy Nick Foles has got to play here. Even if it wrecks the rest of your season, at least you know then that he's not your starting quarterback going forward.
Yeah. Matthew, don't get too mad. Don't get angry until we get here, man. We're still here. Just wait a minute. We'll get to it, and then you can definitely rant and rave all you possibly want. Kyle says, what do you guys think about Monday night game? Go Cowboys.
We always leave that one for last, but I'll give you a little bit of a preview here. They need to win this game. With the Eagles coming up with a big win against the Chicago Bears, that game could have gone either way. I know both of those teams aren't playing fantastic. The Cowboys need to beat a team like the Giants. They are, on paper, the much better team. That being said, we've seen them come up short in some of these scenarios this year. We need the Cowboys to look like they did against the Eagles as opposed to some of these other earlier games this season, like where they let the Dolphins hang around for a little while, and then they blew them out in the end. But we need to see the Cowboys playing 100% and beating a team like the Giants, or, again, you're going to let a team like the Eagles kind of hang around, and that's not what you want in the NFL.
Chris says he thinks that this week proves any given Sunday, and that's why we love football. Yes, man, this week was completely nuts. Jake says, told you, Jake. I told you, the Packers were trash today and didn't show up at all.
You did. Honestly, I had no idea the Chargers had it in them. But, again, I don't know if you want to pin it on the Packers or whether you want to pin it on the Chargers. I think both teams Chargers played really well. Packers didn't show up, kind of like you said.
Their defense played really well.
I hate it for you, man. Yeah. But, again, when you're looking at the way the rest of this division shakes out, the Vikings losing to the Chiefs help you. You've already played that game. You've also got the lead on them in the division. I don't think the Packers are in too much danger. The Bears falling apart, Lions falling apart. It's pretty much a two-horse race now in the NFC North, which we used to think was the best division in football.
Absolutely. Michael, what's going on, man? Glad you could hear us. And, Matt, we're glad that you feel better hearing Green Bay lost. Last thoughts on this game in London.
It's tough. Both these teams going on bye next week. It's pretty clear that the Houston Texans are the front runner in the division now, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we all kind of agree that? Especially if Brissett's going to miss extended weeks. This is their division to lose now.
Yeah. My last thing is really just how long can the Texans keep on playing at this kind of elite level on defense without their best player in J.J. Watt. I know this is week one from his loss. They usually kind of have that high momentum, like, hey, we're going to do it for J.J., but that wears off.
It's also still not a high-powered offense, too.
Right,
so
exactly.
Maybe there's a good chunk of that, having traveled as far as they did. We'll see.
Yeah.
Again, Texans are the team to beat in the AFC South. Do you agree?
Yeah.
No all right. On to Washington, Buffalo. Again, contractually obligated. I'll give them credit. They put up more points than I was expecting them to. Bills win this one 24-9. I was expecting this to be 17-14, and the Bills eke out another win. They just have an easy schedule, man. They play hardly any tough teams. The Buffalo Bills are going to cruise their way into the playoffs, not necessarily because they're a bad team, but because they're a good enough team to win these games.
Yeah, no doubt. Justin, you're not speaking English. There's something you put words together that don't make sense. It's something about too many beers.
It's because you called him Jake instead of Justin. He's saying you've had too many beers already.
Yeah,
Sheesh.
but I don't know how to. Is that Chinese?
You also don't know how to read, so that kind of hurt. I'm just playing. We'll move on.
Well, I'm confused.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll move on. Let's talk about the Redskins. Let's talk about something you do know and do
Oh,
understand.
so I called him Jake.
You did.
Oh, so he's gonna call me out like that?
Yeah, he's saying you drank too much.
Like he's never made a mistake in his life.
We don't want to get into this
Actually, you know
argument.
what? He did make a mistake. He's a Packers fan.
Ouch.
That's where he made a mistake.
Okay, all right.
Born
Didn't
with
they
a mistake.
just beat the Chiefs?
Yes, without Patrick Mahomes. Think about that. one.
But you're the guy who says that's not an excuse.
It is
Injuries
not.
aren't an
But
excuse.
could you imagine what we had if we had Patrick playing?
But that's not an excuse, right?
14-point victory is what we would have had.
All right, let's talk Redskins, who didn't have a 14-point
Justin,
win
hey,
today.
when I'm in the Super Bowl, hope you enjoy watching the Chiefs play.
All right, Eric says,
All right.
what do we think about the Carolina Panthers today? Don't worry, I'll talk about how your team beat up on my team in just a little bit. We are going in order here, but it was a good showing.
You're lucky he stopped me.
Can we talk about the Bills now? I had a hard time getting you to talk about this game before. Can you please just talk about it now? What is it about this game that makes you not want to talk about it? You wouldn't talk about it yesterday. You won't talk about it today.
What do you mean I didn't want to talk about it yesterday?
I had to say Bills, Redskins like 12 times. You didn't want to talk about it,
I don't
and now I've
remember
had to
that.
say it like 5 times tonight. Redskins, Bills, Drew, talk about it. Please, I'm begging you. I'm begging you. Will you talk about the Redskins and how they're the best team ever? Will you talk about how the
Yeah.
Bills and they're just hanging around?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what's going on here. To be honest with you, the reason I didn't really like talking about this game is we talk about so many games that just aren't exciting to watch. You're talking about two teams that are literally struggling on offensive side of the ball to put up points. Even Josh Allen, prior to this, didn't even look that great. I still don't think he even had that great of a game. It was just kind of the fact that the Redskins are in such disarray that he looked a little bit better than what it is. That Bills defense is good. And I think that's what keeps him around. But then you look what Adrian Peterson did. He looked like he was 22 years old. Just tearing him apart.
Another 108 yards on the ground.
I mean,
think they also tried to protect him, Haskins, in that sense,
Well,
where he
right,
only
but
threw 22 times, only 144
You've
yards.
seen Adrian
all
Peterson been
short
shut out
range.
before. Why
Yeah.
couldn't they do it? This is supposed to be one of the best defenses.
Right, and I don't know. I really
I mean, I
don't.
get they won.
And 9 points is not a big deal, right? Bend, don't break. That's an important part of defense, but I don't know, Drew. I look at this game, and Dwayne Haskins, even though he didn't make a lot of mistakes today, that's important. You're not going to be able to protect him like this forever. I understand they don't have the weapons. You can't throw for 144 yards and expect it to really work out. Is this a minus or is this a plus in the Dwayne Haskins report card for you? When we get to the end of the season, does this go as a plus or a minus here?
It goes to a plus. It just you can't baby NFL quarterbacks though. You gotta.
If your offense looks like this,
I know you're the whole sit them until
Keep
they
'em-
play a weak defense and then go out there and play them.
or like put an offense around him and let him
It's-
have at it like Daniel Jones and the Giants. Yeah, I am like that too. Put an offense around the guy. Has Washington put an offense around this guy?
Gardner Minshew didn't get the chance to sit and wait. Kyle Allen didn't get.
Gardner
a chance.
Minshew came in as a backup quarterback, and Kyle Allen did too. Again, they weren't sitting their quarterback to play Gardner Minshew or Kyle Allen. They're sitting quarterbacks to play Dwayne Haskins.
Well, they got to figure out what they got in them. The organization has to figure out.
Gardner Minshew is also a 6th-round pick, disposable. Dwayne Haskins is a 1st-round pick. Unless you're the Broncos, not really disposable.
I was about to say, hold on. Even the Cardinals knew that a 1st-round pick is disposable. So
Well, that's and how great are the Cardinals? Do you want your franchise to be like the Cardinals,
they're
Drew?
looking decent this year. They've been to a Super Bowl more recently than
Yeah,
my
here
team
we go.
has.
Okay, I thought
And
you were going
your
to say that
team.
my team. Yeah,
And your
all
team.
right. Good job. With Ken Wisenhunt, too. We had their coach and still couldn't make it work. So, again, Redskins, I'm not in love with the start. I don't think it was a great performance, but you're right. It is still a good defense. Maybe 144 yards turns into 220 next week, and still the mistakes don't show up. I think that's the most important thing. Can you protect this guy? Can you get him something to work with? And can we build on something in Washington? As for Buffalo, another easy win in the NFL that's supposed to not have any easy games.
Yeah, Buffalo worries me a little bit. I know their record looks decent, but I'm just not impressed by them. I was starting out. Their defense was stout.
Sure. And then I think they played Cincinnati, and I was like, what's going on? Where they
Right.
had to take like a last-second field goal to beat
And-
a team like the
and
Bengals.
Miami.
Yeah.
It
14-9 in the 4th quarter. Yeah, I know they wound up blowing them out, but
right.
yeah, I'm with you. Buffalo, to me, plays an easy schedule. We'll make the playoffs because the AFC is really weak. Still not a team that you look at and say, dude, they're going far into the playoffs, or I really think they're going to have an impact, or watch out for them. They could upset some people. They're almost an also-ran to me. That's really how they feel. I mean, the offense never seems to click. The defense is on and off.
Yeah.
They're winning games, though. It's important.
They are. The question is Josh Allen your future at quarterback? Because I know they're saying he is.
Is it too early to start questioning it?
Well, look at
another first-round pick.
I mean, just like look at Lamar Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Look what he has accomplished. I mean, maybe that's the high end of the spectrum, but that's what you're expecting, right? I mean, that's what you're taking this guy this
He's winning
high.
games. Isn't that what we've said about Lamar Jackson?
Yeah,
he's winning games. It's not always pretty. This year it's been better, but last year it definitely wasn't pretty.
I mean,
and the whole argument for
I don't
every
wanna
Lamar
sit there and
Jackson
say
fan
that-
is he's winning games.
I don't want to sit there and say that Josh Allen hasn't won games off of him alone, because I believe that that's the case.
He beat the Titans with his legs last
Exactly.
year. Yeah. This year, kind of,
But-
but
There need to be some kind of improvement. I'm not saying year 3 you're done with them, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe after year 3, if there's not improvement, yeah, you probably move on.
is it the same kind of thing in Washington, though, where they haven't done a good enough job of putting weapons around him? I mean, they signed Cole Beasley, they signed John Brown, but those aren't marquee weapons. Those aren't guys you're going home and brag about to mom, right? You're not like, we got Cole Beasley. We're fixed.
No, but you did go in the offseason.
And they paid him.
And
They
try
paid
to
him like
fix
they were.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, you did do this, though. You did try to go in there. You tried to trade for Antonio Brown. You tried to fix your offensive line problems. You found a young running back in Singletary. I mean, this is the stuff. You bring in a veteran like Frank Gore. Like, you are putting weapons around him. Are they the greatest weapons? No, but not everyone can have, the Kansas City Chiefs offense. Not everyone's going to have the receivers like the Vikings do. Like, you can't always have that. At some point in time, you're the guy that has to make things happen.
Sure, I'll agree with that.
And I just don't know if Josh Allen has it. And I like Josh Allen.
And I'm in the same camp of if he can't throw, he ain't an NFL quarterback. I'm with you on that. But I got to argue, if I'm playing devil's advocate here, he's winning games. We say that about Lamar Jackson all the time. Sure, he's got a good defense. Sure, he's got a running game. He's making it happen with his legs. If you're winning games, it's hard to replace a quarterback winning games in the NFL, especially when you're a franchise like Buffalo. They went through such a dearth of, we have nobody to play the quarterback spot. He's been relatively healthy since he's been there. I don't think we need to be having this conversation yet. Until these start to turn into 5-win seasons, 6-win seasons, I think he's a made man in Buffalo.
No, I mean, I get it. I guess the real question is, how long does this defense stay together?
Sure, but we say that about Buffalo. We say that about the Ravens all the time. They always seem to put something on the field that's not terrible. Let's go to a couple of these comments here. Chris says, Jake, when the Colts win the AFC South, he wants to see me in a Colts shirt. Come up with something you get when they don't win, and maybe we'll make it a bet, Chris. Justin says, and in one of your Super Bowl appearances, I think he's talking about
The Chiefs.
Yeah, well, Titans haven't been a bunch either. Nathan also says, how about them Chargers? Great win for them today, man. I still think they're fool's gold. Still don't think they're great, but this is maybe the building blocks that gets them back on track. Problem is Patrick Mahomes is coming back. How do you run down the Chiefs when they're still got this kind of lead on you? That's a tough ask. Matthew says he's very happy with the Chargers because they beat the Packers. I'm with you there. I understand your sentiment there. Nate also says, please, but that Chargers can on top of Green. What? You lost me there, Nate. I don't know.
The Green Bay can on top of Chargers. Just to remind everyone, the bottom row of the cans are home teams. That's the reason why they're on the bottom, not because we think they're going to win or lose. It's just their home field advantage. That's how we show it.
And Tyler also says, just want to show some love to some Iowa players killing it in the NFL this week. Yeah, absolutely impressive. Frank, good to see you. Let's talk about your game, Drew.
Always showing Hawkeye love, by the way, Tyler.
Absolutely.
Always.
Let's talk about the Vikings and the Chiefs.
Let's do it.
It was a better game than I expected.
Way better
You
game.
almost pulled the trigger and took the Chiefs. You even said before the show, I think I'm going to do it, and then you backed out in the middle of the show. You couldn't do it.
I couldn't do it.
You couldn't change
I backed
lanes.
out. I did. It's disappointing. Ray, what's going on, man? Glad you could join us. I know Matthew, me and him had a little bit of... We had to become enemies for a while there while this game was going on. To be honest with you, what I saw was the Kansas City's defense frustrate Kirk Cousins and his passing lanes and his ability to read the defense. There was too much offsetting pass rush. You would see the blitz and then it wouldn't happen, and then you think it's not coming. It was coming. It really upset Kirk Cousins and everything he was trying to do. Now, that being said, the loss of Adam Thielen was huge.
Right.
Anytime you lose a guy in the middle of the game,
it wasn't my fantasy team. Yeah, I probably win if he plays out, but hey.
So that's an issue. But I can't just put it to that, because you looked at the corner Ward for Kansas City. He shut out Stephon Diggs.
Yep.
1 catch for 4 yards. We stopped the league's leading rusher to 71 yards. I mean, this defense came to play, and I don't want to just put it all on the defense, because obviously Tyreek Hill, Damian Williams all had incredible games. Matt Moore has, I think, in my opinion, restarted his career in the NFL. Do I think he's a starter in the NFL? Probably not. But if the Chiefs decide not to hold on to him after this year, I believe another team would be picking him up for a backup position. And let's remember, guys, he was jobless.
And Matthew says he could rant about this game for hours. Well, feel free, man. We'll read some of it. I promise you that. He also says, how about Kirk Cousins sliding a yard short of the first down line, even though he could have made it? That's always tough. I'm going to say about this game what I've always said about the Kansas City offense, which is, to me, it all runs through the engine of Tyreek Hill being on the field. I think this team is hands down better, even though I'm not trying to take anything away from Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce. They've got other weapons. They've got other great players in this offense. When he's out there, though, it's on another level. The guy has so much speed, so much ability, and agility on top of it. He has so many weapons that it's almost impossible for defenses to take him out of the game. And we saw that happen today. I mean, did you see his first touchdown catch?
He's a stud.
Absolutely fantastic. That's not like a play that a normal down-the-field speedy receiver makes. He's not the guy that just runs down the field. He's a talented receiver on top of it. When he's on the field, he makes Kansas City's offense the best in the league.
Yeah, no doubt. The guy's definitely talented. He's willing to sacrifice his body for catches. I mean, you can remember this guy's not extremely tall, and he's up there jumping up, trying to catch the ball at the highest point, and doing it at the same time. And then obviously everyone's keep bringing up the whole fact that when Damian Williams was running the 91-yard rush, he caught up to him with no problem at all. I think there's no doubt about this is the fastest guy in the NFL.
Absolutely. Also, Tyler says, what a game, boys. The defense showed up. Moore did just enough, and the team stepped up. He loved it. And he also agrees with me saying Hill is the difference maker. I'm with you. They're a good team without him. They're a good offense without him. With him, they're elite. And there's it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. They can get a lot done as long as Tyreek Hill's out there because he's so dynamic. You can run end arounds. You can run slants that have the ability for him to break it on every single play because he has so much speed. I think he is the engine in this offense, regardless of who's out there. Yes, Patrick Mahomes is amazing as well. That's not taken away from him. But like I said, who was I just talking about? Hill takes him to the next level.
Yeah. I don't know. I think when you bring up car parts and like an engine, I think he's more like the NOS. He's like the turbo. He's like the supercharger that, you have an engine. It runs good. It can be fast. But when you throw him in there, he's that extra boost, that extra speed. Because as much as you want to say it's Hill, let's not forget we didn't have Hill for the first 4 games, and Mahomes was throwing the ball all over the place. Sammy Watkins looked like a leading receiver. I mean,
what happened to him?
Mahomes or Sammy Watkins?
Sammy Watkins.
He looked great this game.
Yeah, well,
he had solid catches. He had a one-handed catch that was really well caught. I mean, it looked good. I mean,
and I think high tide raises all boats here. I think with Hill out there, it's easier for guys like Sammy Watkins and everyone else. Even guys like Mecole Hardman who did not have a good game today.
I can't call him the engine. But he is like...
If he's the engine, Patrick Mahomes is the steering wheel. Does that make you feel better?
No.
He's the guy who tells the engine where to go, and then he gets him where he... whatever.
I don't think so. I watch way too much Kansas City to sit there and go, oh, yeah, it's all Tyreek Hill.
Trade him away, then.
Makes him look better.
Trade him away. All right, we'll move on.
2 first-round picks. You got
Deal. And Corey Davis. I'll throw him in for free.
I don't want Corey Davis.
Frank says Kansas City needs a good running game. I mean... I understand they didn't have a great running game today with Damian Williams having 125 yards. If you take that 91-yard run out of there, you're talking about 30, 40 yards. But 125 yards is still nothing to scoff at. Against a good defense like the Vikings have, I don't think the running game is necessarily the problem. As long as you have weapons like this, anyone can be your running back. You're going to have some success.
Matthew, Mecole Hardman, the kickoff return fumble was definitely a good chance for the Vikings to put themselves ahead and didn't really capitalize on that opportunity. Again, this is your time to not contain yourself and rant away. Tyler says we need a lead back, though. I think Damian Williams is it. I think Damian Williams is our lead back. It's Andy Reid loves his players, and he's going to give LaShawn McCoy a chance. He's going to give Darrell Williams a chance. He's going to give Thompson a chance just because that's who Andy Reid is. If I had to pick one right now, it'd be Damian Williams.
I think it's a luxury, especially with as many needs as you still have on defense. I know the defense had a good day. I know the defense had a good couple weeks without Patrick Mahomes. They definitely stepped up. But you can't tell me you wouldn't like to see some improvements on this defense. I think you got to go that direction before you go and take a running back of any capacity.
I don't think we need one. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I think we have
then
one.
Again,
he's just
4th,
not being
5th,
utilized.
6th round comes around. You get a Dave Montgomery out of the late third or something like that. Sometimes you just take him.
That's where Hunt came from. But
right,
yeah.
Exactly. So I'm with you, but I don't think it's like, a running back and the Chiefs are a complete team. I still think they could probably be better spent on the defensive side of the ball. If they can get this defense like playing like this every week, they're going to win Super Bowls. They're going to win multiple Super Bowls.
We're still have a lot of people out too, and that's huge.
Absolutely. Kenny, good to see you, man. Tyler agrees with us. Matthew says, I'm not super upset because we lost by 3 to a good team. You would have preferred a W. I understand, man, especially some of those close games. It can be really tough to watch. Jonathan says, how about them Eagles? Looks like our secondary is actually good now. We need a wide receiver. Well, you've been on the wide receiver warpath for a while, but before we talk about that game, we do need to talk about the Jets and Dolphins because we need to talk about the Jets being a terrible organization and losing to the Dolphins. Being the guys who stepped up for the NFL and made sure Miami is not going to get their guy in the draft.
You know what sucks about this game is we literally talked about it and said, the Dolphins have a chance of winning this game because Ryan Fitzpatrick can put up points.
Right.
And he can put up points in a hurry.
And he did.
Which is going to make the Jets have an issue with catching up. And what do? We
didn't take them. We couldn't believe it.
We didn't sit there and say that that's going to happen. We sat there and both picked the Jets. And those guys during the offseason –
took the Dolphins. We saw it coming. We had the crystal ball out.
Yeah.
We knew Fitzpatrick was going to be starting by now.
Right.
We're like, the Jets aren't a good organization. They're going to find a way to lose this one. Again, it's hard to look at it as a positive. Yes, you want to win games, especially if you're Brian Flores and you need to justify keeping your job. Winning, you don't want to go 0-16, but in the long run, if you miss out on your quarterback in the draft, how much does this hurt you? Because now you have teams like the Jets that are behind you. You have teams like the Bengals that are behind you in Week 16 that when they play each other. You've already lost, or you've already got the head-to-head with the Jets, too. Realistically, there's going to be 3 teams that might have a chance to wind up with a quarterback before they get there.
Yeah.
Does this hurt them in the long run?
Well, they have the assets to trade up if they feel like they need to.
But you can't trade up when the team says, I need a quarterback, and I'm not trading away the pick.
You
right?
possibly can when you're like, hey, I got 4 picks
Ryan
that
Finley,
say so.
like the Cincinnati Bengals.
Well, I got 4 picks that says you might.
I don't think there's a single GM that said, like Cincinnati, where they're at right now, that's saying, we need a quarterback. I'll take your picks and just not take one unless you look at them all and you're like, they're garbage.
I don't know. Today's NFL, man, it's a possibility you can see trades.
I just don't see it.
Remember that the Bears traded up 1 pick to pick up
Mitch Trubisky.
Just
for a team that didn't want him, is my point. I'm saying if a team wants him.
They traded because they're worried about another team trading up to get him.
Sure, but
Mitch Trubisky.
Right. And hindsight's 20/20. I get when you're like, it's Mitch Trubisky. What if it's Deshaun Watson? You'd be like, what a great move. They made sure they got Deshaun Watson before anyone else did.
Well, he did
Hindsight's 20/20.
He did come out in the same draft.
Yeah, exactly. But I'll say this: I don't think if you need a quarterback, you're trading away your first round pick. I think this win here, even though it's what you want to see from an organizational standpoint, is something for the fans saying, hey, we're not totally helpless. We're not just out in the middle, out running through 0-16, and there's a reason to come to some of our games. Does not help you long term. All it does is hurt you when you want to talk about draft capital and your ability to get a new quarterback that is eventually going to have to replace 35-year-old Ryan Fitzpatrick. Right?
Yeah.
You have a new quarterback going into the next
Josh
season.
Rosen.
Okay.
He says, Jake, you and him have a lot to talk about this week. Matthew, thank you, man. Good game to the Vikings and you as well, even though we didn't do nothing but drink beer and watch them play. But, hey, we were part of it.
Good game. He's just trying to give out good games. Ian also says he picked the Finns. Who didn't? I was this close. I was too, dude. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't pull the trigger. I was like, I'm gonna look so silly when they come out and lose by 40 to the Jets because Sam Darnold didn't they just beat the Cowboys? Like massively.
You would think.
Didn't they just have a great game? And then they can't show up these past couple weeks. So again, I guess I bet on the wrong bad horse.
Vinny, good to see you, man. Glad you're in. He says, here we go, Steelers. Here we go.
Well, we'll get to him. We got one more game, though. I know Jonathan's been waiting on this. We're going to talk Eagles and Bears first. If you're ready.
Yeah, no, I'm ready. I was just reading his comment.
Let's talk about the Eagles and how they pulled this one off like you predicted and how the Bears are dead to me as a franchise. It's over. It's over, Chicago. I bet on you. I said 12-4. I was like, the comeback starts now.
You know
right?
what? Yeah, and
wrong.
I know. I thought you were thinking that too. One thing that I did not mention yesterday in the show that I was wanting to mention when I was going to talk about this game was a Jordan Howard revenge game. This was his chance to prove against his former team that there's no reason to let him go. I can't sit there and say he's the reason that they won the game, but he looked good in this performance. This Eagles team did exactly what they're trying to do. They disrupted all of the offensive play calling and play abilities that the Bears were trying to create. I'm just thankful, really, and I know this is funny because it's fantasy stuff. that Montgomery hit the end zone twice, because I picked him up hoping he would do something well on the heavy bye weeks for me, and he did very well for me.
Well, let me go back to the actual football side of things. 10 for 21, only 125 yards. Are you buying all this replace Mitch Trubisky talk?
You don't replace him.
Is it time?
Well, that's the same thing talking about replacing, who else were we talking about? Oh, Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Why? He won last year. He was winning games.
Sure, but this year he's not, and you can't tell me that you wouldn't rather have the Bears roster than the Bills, right?
Right.
You would take the Bears hands down.
Absolutely.
And it's not getting done. And it's all quarterback, it seems like. Because they ran the ball today. Like you said, they scored a couple touchdowns. It wasn't pretty, but they scored a couple touchdowns there. Even though they only got 40 yards on the ground, the running attack was working in some capacity. They threw the ball 21 times. They only had 10 completions. First off, that tells me they don't have any faith in Mitch Trubisky. And I know they had barely any possession. The Eagles had the ball for 40 minutes out of the 60-minute game. But still, 21 passes on your quarterback, and he completes 10 of them. You're under 50%, Drew, against a weak secondary, a secondary that's not been performing over the past couple weeks. This is an issue. It's a huge issue. And I've been the guy saying, hey, pump the brakes. Mitch Trubisky's not this bad. It's not that big of a deal, but when I see the Eagles come out and dominate him like this, and it was domination, let's face it, even though the score stayed close, they dominated this Bears offense for most of the game.
Yeah, they did. But I don't know if you can sit there and say they don't trust Mitch Trubisky, because we're not that far off from a few weeks ago when he threw the ball 54 times. And I was sitting there going, you cannot have plan your game out with Mitch Trubisky throwing the ball 50-plus times. You can't do it. You have to go away from that and run the ball. And now what I saw was just the Eagles manhandling a team that's doing a lot worse than they are right now. And I'm not saying that the Eagles are just flying high over here. I mean, they just now got above 500.
Right.
They just, in a sense, restarted their season, which is great for them. But I also think that they're really just beating up on a poor team right now that's literally just trying to figure itself out offensively, not defensively.
I was going to say, I think it's even a little bit more than that. When you look at it, when you're talking about them running the ball 35 times and having 146 yards on the ground and a touchdown, it's a huge win, man. It's a huge win. You don't do that against the Bears. You don't run for 150 yards against the Bears. You just don't do it. Couple more comments. Gabby says, hey guys, the Jags suck today. We talked all about it. Our question to you as a Jags fan, when Nick Foles comes back, Gabby, do you play him or do you stick with Gardner Minshew? My question is, which way do you go in that one? I get it. It's not the result you want, and now you're way behind, but at the very least, I don't. There's not a whole lot of bright sides. The Colts lost Jacoby Brissett. You're still going to have to run down Houston to win this division. Do you start Nick Foles? Is he the guy to do that? Let us know in the comments. Jonathan says, can't run. Agents are front four against our front four. I understand that. They got two touchdowns on the ground, still only 40 yards, 14 carries. Not the yards per carry you want to see, but if you had to pick a side of the ball that won today for the Bears, it was the ground game.
Yeah.
And when I say won, I mean like they put up only 14 points here. You attack the Eagles through the air. You couldn't do that with Mr. Trubisky, so obviously something's wrong here. I'm starting to buy into the hype that maybe it's time to go look for another quarterback in Chicago. Yeah. But how do you give up on a second overall pick this quick? Easy. You don't want him to turn into Marcus Mariota. And you say I don't care where he was drafted. I got to say, how good is he on the field? But right now, he's not good on the field.
He's 1 year moved away from being in a team that was 12-4.
11-5, 12-4, yeah, somewhere in there.
1 year moved. Everyone has down years, maybe besides the Patriots. Everyone has down years. I can't imagine they're going to sit there and say, you don't have it anymore, we're gone from you. That's where my thing when I talk about Josh Allen is he's never had a record that sits there and says, look at you, went to the playoffs with you, you're performing, you have thrown 300 yards in a game and won a game off of your arm. Yeah, he's won some games, but that's my difference here is if this was reversed, would you be saying the same thing about Josh Allen?
Well, I think it comes down to weapons. He has Allen Robinson, who is hands down better than anyone the Bills have. They have invested in guys like Anthony Miller, a second-round pick, who's looked pretty good last year and has suddenly disappeared. Is that him? They have Taylor Gabriel. They have Riley Ridley out of college. Him. They have Montgomery they just spent a pick on. They have Tariq Cohen, who looked good last year and now doesn't look very good. They gave up Jordan Howard because they're like, we don't need him. And that might be their biggest issue because they gave up a talent like Jordan Howard for a song to the Eagles for nothing. I look at Josh Allen and I'm like, he doesn't have the weapons for me to say it's his fault yet. Like, if he had these weapons in Chicago, maybe I'm going to go to that. I mean, they paid Trey Burton. That's another guy I haven't talked about. They paid Trey Burton big money to steal him from the Eagles and bring him in because they believe him to be a receiving threat. They've not managed to get any of those guys going, especially Allen Robinson. He has some good games occasionally. He's an absolute monster, but you can't tell me there aren't other teams that would be better utilizing Allen Robinson than the Bears have utilized him to this point.
Austin said Mitch looks so bad they should try to get Bridgewater. So he's in about just moving on.
Try to get Minshew. Right? I mean, if Nick Foles is going to be the starter, might as well trade him for Minshew.
They're not letting Minshew go.
I wouldn't, because I don't know that he's not my starter next season. Again, what happens if Foles comes out and he stinks?
Yeah. Well, let's move on to the next game, especially considering Vinny and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the other name. The other guy, who else is waiting for
Ian. He's in here sometimes.
There was one Ian that wasn't waiting for him. Was it Ian that was willing to talk?
Ian's ready to talk Steelers. I know that.
Ian's wanting to talk just sports with us. That's why he's an asset to Sports Around the Bar. Sorry, Ian. I did not mean to leave you out. But let's talk about the Steelers game. And don't worry, Kenny. We'll get to how bad the Titans are in just a minute. I think I saw how Cherie said that the Steelers got lucky. Obviously, Jacoby Brissett going down with a knee injury definitely changed the outcome, I think, in this game. But I don't think that the Steelers' defense didn't come to play, because they came out and they were playing really well.
Yeah, I mean, the 96-yard interception, I think, caps the day off. As anytime your team gets a 96-yard interception, it's not at the defense's fault, right? They did their job. At that point, you're talking about the offense. I think Mason Rudolph had an acceptable day. I was the one saying I don't think he does much against the Colts yesterday when we were talking about all this. But if you look at the way he finished the day, I mean, 191 yards, touchdown pick. That's solid backup numbers. That's what you kind of want out of Mason Rudolph. You're not asking him to throw all over the lot. You're not asking him to go light everybody up.
Yeah.
He took care of the ball for the most part. He moved the ball a little bit. I think, again, when it comes down to it, they don't win this game with Jacoby Brissett playing.
Yeah.
If Jacoby Brissett stays healthy, this is all Colts.
Kenny Connors was hurt tonight. So was their other Snell.
It was Trey Edmonds who was carrying the ball for the Steelers.
So they had some injuries to the running back. Gabby says that's a tough question. Still doesn't know how she feels about it.
I think, again, we talked about this a little bit before, but we'll talk about it again briefly. I think you have to go with Nick Foles when you pay the guy that kind of money, especially with Gardner Minshew starting to slow down a little bit. I think the momentum of him coming in has started to worn off. I think you got to see what Nick Foles has. You can always go back to him. But when you pay a guy $80 million to be your quarterback, you got to believe in him being your starting quarterback. I think they need to do a better job protecting him. Roll with them, see what happens. Because right now, at 4-5, the odds of you catching the Texans, not great. My team's in the same spot. I'm a Titans fan. We're both sitting at 4-5. Odds are this division's out of reach here with Houston going up this early and having played as many of their tough games already.
Corey, we're glad you're here, man. Even though you're late, no big deal. Hopefully that video starts playing for you. And don't worry, we haven't talked about the Chargers game just yet. It will be the last game before we talk about primetime games. So you're good, man. Hopefully you can figure out that video.
Absolutely. Austin also says he thinks the Colts were the better team. If Brissett stays in, they win. I agree with you. I don't think you get the mistakes with Brissett. The real question in the AFC South is, can Brian Hoyer keep this team somewhat competitive to hang with Houston and maybe have a chance to steal this division away from them? Because if you go on a 3-game losing streak while Brissett's nursing this sprained knee, that's going to be all she wrote for the Colts too.
Yeah.
My answer is probably no. I don't think they're going to be good enough. I'm still not a big Colts supporter, but I think Chris believes in them. There's a lot of people out there telling me that they're a good team and that I'm just not seeing it. They're on technically their third-string quarterback. It's time to prove it. Again, I'm going to need to see a lot of rushing out of Marlon Mack if I'm going to believe that this team's going to hang with Houston, who's already a half game up on them.
The reason why I feel like the Colts can win this division is the way, and I talked about this yesterday and about why I thought they could win this game, is their defense is playing better than their talent. And I'm not saying they're not talent. They don't have any talent. They're not talentless. They're just, it's when you talk about an elite defense with elite stars, Colts is not one of the teams you bring up.
Right.
And again, I know I'm bringing it up against just one game, and I bring up the way they played the Chiefs and beat the Chiefs is, they were just all over the field, all across the board, on every level. And those games like that and teams that can play like that find themselves further in the playoffs than most other teams.
I agree with that. Now, Ian also says, why be able to challenge a pass interference call if it's never overturned, even on an obvious not catchable ball? I'm kind of with you. I mean, there's almost no point to challenging it. I think it's a rule, but how often are you going to get away with it? I still not am crazy about it. I think, for the most part, how often does it change a situation where you're going to call that. It's not like the Saints game where it's like in the clutch time. There's no time to recover from it. I don't love the idea of being able to challenge it, but if you are going to be able to, they might as well reverse some of these calls that are pretty obvious.
Austin says the Texans get the division, and the Colts will probably get the 6th seed. I think that's probably
it's reasonable.
More than likely what's going to happen.
Chargers could come on. You still got. It could be anyone in the AFC South. I still think the Jags and the Titans are in it, but I think, again, when you're the Titans and you've blown all the easy games, and now you got to go and play like the Chiefs and Houston twice and the Saints, they're probably out of it. I still think the AFC's wide open. The Colts still have to stay on track, and they need to win some games if they're going to make the playoffs.
Vinny says he was so happy that the Steelers' defense was acting every inch of the Colts' offense. Mason did a great job getting out of the pocket and making big plays.
This is what you want out of a backup quarterback. 200 yards, limited turnovers, and a touchdown. I think he did well enough to get the win here, but again, I think I'm not trying to rain on your parade or anything, Vinny, but I think you don't win this game if the Colts keep their starting quarterback for this one. I think it needs to be a little bit more... you need more out of Mason Rudolph if you're going to consistently beat good teams in the NFL. I think more than anything, what the Steelers have learned is that they do not have the guy of the future. Mason Rudolph is not the next starting guy. He's not anyone that's going to threaten Ben Roethlisberger's job next year. If Roethlisberger doesn't come back from this elbow injury, you're drafting a quarterback with that first-round pick you threw away to get Minka Fitzpatrick. So I think more than anything, we know that the Steelers now still need the guy to replace Big Ben Roethlisberger whenever he decides to call it a career.
Ian says the Steelers' big test is next week with Ramsey and the Rams coming into Pittsburgh.
They got to win on the offensive line, but we'll go into that later.
But to be honest, man, I think the Steelers have had a tough schedule. I think they've been challenged majority of this season. It's fine picking the Rams as like your big test, but why wouldn't the Patriots week 1? Why wasn't the Colts week 9? I'm just saying.
Right.
I think you guys had a really tough schedule, especially to lose your starting quarterback, man. And trust me, I know, Ian, you know this. I'm not a Steelers fan, but it's unfortunate for Steelers if you were expecting this year to be a big year.
Right.
Well, it's not like next year you're in the water figuring out what you're going to do.
Yeah.
You'll be back to being normal because Ben Roethlisberger will be back.
And I think they know they need to retool the offense. They need to bring in some new guys to catch the ball. I think we've kind of... Maybe you're still believing Juju Smith-Schuster's the number one, but I think we know that he's going to need more help in the receiving room than he has right now. I don't know that you're really convinced that your running game is good enough with James Conner or anyone else. Even though we don't hate James Conner, he's almost to me like a good number 2, kind of like an Austin Eckler that you want to have behind somebody. I don't know that I'm in love with the way James Conner has played.
Right. He's a guy that you definitely want to have some plays for in your offensive play calling, but he's not a guy that you want.
He's not a game changer.
He's not a guy you want to lead your backfield with.
Absolutely. And Austin's saying Watson's too good. He feels like he has the talent to keep the AFC South in the Houston Texans' control. Kenny says, curious on how Ramsey will affect the Rams' locker room. Long-term, yes. Short-term, I think it helps him. Again, how long till he gets frustrated and starts complaining about stuff? Because they're going to pay the man.
To be honest, I don't think it bothers them that much at all. They had a lot of personality back in there. You got to remember Talib, Marcus Peters.
Right.
Those are big names in the exact same position that Ramsey plays. To be honest, I think Ramsey's a flicker of light compared to those two guys and their personalities. And that's hard to say.
I don't agree with that, but I understand what you're saying, that they've dealt with big personalities. I agree with that part of it. I'm not going to say Jalen Ramsey is anything less than what a Talib and Peters can be.
I said a flicker of light. I didn't say like a bright and shining lighthouse. Trust me, I've played against Talib in Denver
personally.
Yes, I did.
How's his press coverage?
He ripped my gold chain off my neck. I was not very happy with him. I've also seen Marcus Peters play in the uniform that I enjoy watching, and his rants in the sideline. Yeah, I would take Jalen Ramsey 100%.
That's like every big-time corner, though, right? Like every good cornerback in the league, unless your name's Logan Ryan, is like that kind of in-your-face personality, because that's the kind of guy you need to play at corner.
Yeah, but he arguably could be the best corner in the league. I don't know if you can...
Jalen Ramsey or Marcus Peters?
No, I'm talking about Jalen Ramsey. You cannot sit there and say that about Marcus Peters. I don't even know if you can say
I wasn't, and that's what I was...
And I don't even think you can say that about Talib, and that's what I'm saying. Their personalities
Once upon a time, yeah.
way higher. Talib was the best corner.
When he was a Patriot, yeah. Do you remember all that?
Nah, he just played...
He was the best corner in the league when he was with the Patriots. And he was pretty good in Denver, too. I think we're forgetting how great he was when he was in his prime.
I didn't say he wasn't great. I didn't even say Marcus Peters wasn't
If not for Richard Sherman, he might have been the best corner in the league. And that's all I got to say. if not for Richard Sherman. I think Richard Sherman overshadowed him because, again, loud, obnoxious personality, but that's the kind of guy you need at corner because who else can play that spot? You need a guy.
Revis was still playing when all that was
yeah,
going
but
on.
playing poorly.
In a shittier team.
When he was like 90 years old.
Oh my God!
Watch
You're
your
literally
language, young man.
literally
Watch your
gonna tell
language.
me that because he played with the Patriots and was considered the greatest or the best corner in the league.
So Stephon Gilmore's a bum because he's on the Patriots?
That's not what I'm bringing up. Don't throw that name in there, because he was.
Well, he's just on the Patriots, man. It's right. Talib was great when they traded for him. He was okay in Tampa. The Patriots were like, this guy's pretty good. Tampa's not doing a good job of using him. So we'll trade nothing for him, and that's exactly what happened. And then he goes to Denver. That defense was elite. He was absolutely fantastic there. Yeah, he was. When he was younger, he was absolutely fantastic.
You said he was the best
arguably
corner.
one of the best. No, I said except for Richard Sherman, who was on in the same point in time. Richard Sherman was better during that era.
Darrelle Revis was better.
When he was healthy, sure. When he was young and healthy, yes, Darrelle Revis was better than both those guys. But that was like after. Or that was before, I should say. Talib kind of hit his stride. All right, we'll keep going. All right. Will, speaking of Buccaneers, says the good Buccaneers showed up and they still lost. Yeah, that's what happens when you play the Seahawks, right? Corey says he's got a question for us. Who is the better Bosa so far? It's still Nick Bosa. It's still Joey Bosa until further review. We need to see more out of Nick before we're ready to crown him because the rest of that defense is looking a lot better than the Chargers' defense is right now, minus today. Ian also said he had them as the upset of the week, talking about Tampa Bay. That's a pretty big upset. Austin says talking about Talib ripping off gold chains. Sanders looks like a new man in San Francisco. That was actually Michael Crabtree. He did that too.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it wasn't Sanders. I think he's getting confused on his Denver Broncos.
It was Denver ripping off a Raiders chain.
That's a stretch. That's a walk. If we're talking about ripping guys' gold chains off.
That's
I've never seen
what
Emmanuel
happened.
Sanders wear a gold chain.
No, he was. Never mind.
No, I know. I just think Austin's off base a little bit here.
Don't you say that about Austin.
But he's right.
Austin, do you want me to punch
Sanders
him?
is
Tell
like
me, do you want me to punch him, Austin?
I'm going to disagree with you, though. He doesn't look like a new man. He looks like a utilized man that's been playing well in Denver when they throw him the ball, right? How many times have we seen him light the scoreboard up in Denver, and then next week he's a ghost because they just don't throw it to him?
No, Amanda Sanders is way better than people give him credit for. He's a great route runner. He used to be a speedster. He still has some speed. He's definitely gotten a little bit slower in his age,
But that's okay. That's okay, Austin.
But he's a great player. Again, I told you, the 49ers, even though they said they wanted Sanu, I don't think they got a worse option than Emmanuel Sanders because they did get Sanu.
I think it was the price. They were probably just looking for I don't know. I think they were, even though the Patriots paid a second-round pick, I'm with you. I think Emmanuel Sanders is the better of the two players. If you're asking me who I can have to be my starting wide receiver, I'm going to take Emmanuel Sanders hands down over Mohamed Sanu.
Lamar Jackson just ran for a TD. Thank you, Ray, for the update.
Color me shocked.
Go fantasy.
All right, we'll move on. Let's talk about the Titans and how trash they are, because if you watch that first half, my God, could they have shot themselves in the foot more? I mean, I hope Kenny's still watching because he's going to confirm this. From dropped interceptions to turning the ball over themselves to fumbles to to screwing themselves with stupid penalties in the offensive line. Terrible first half, kind of ruined the rest of the game. I don't want to take anything away from the Panthers because they played really well today, especially without Jarrell Casey. They dominated the Titans on the ground, which is what nobody does, right? This is one of the hardest teams to run against. Christian McCaffrey still got his job done. 143 yards on the ground. He looked like regular Christian McCaffrey today.
That's why I picked the Titans to win. And I was wrong.
You were? And I knew this was coming. I was like, uh-oh. And this is even before I knew Jarrell Casey was... Actually, I take that back. I knew Jarrell Casey was out. I was still taking Panthers beforehand because the Titans never win 3 games in a row. That's kind of our rule or our law. You can only win 2 at the most because you got to finish 9-7 or 8-8. Right. So, of course, Titans can't come up big here. It's a terrible game. Karen saying penalties. Yes, the penalties set him back too, but it wasn't just that. It was the offensive line getting murdered on every play, getting Ryan Tannehill hit, which no injury history there. That's not a big deal, right? Who cares if he takes a bunch of hits? To even Ryan Tannehill being off on some of his throws. I mean, the first interception that went off of A.J. Brown's hands, definitely behind him on a slant route. That's unacceptable. You got to lead your receiver. I say the same thing about Marcus. I'm not going to let Tannehill get away with it either. You got to lead your receiver on a slant route or bad things happen. Deion Lewis fumbled. You have like 8 rushes on the season, and you're going to fumble the ball here. What the hell? It was everything going wrong with the Titans. All I can say is they weren't in it long enough for Mike Vrabel to make the wrong call and screw up. Missed field goals. Another big one. It was everything going wrong with the Titans. Props to the Carolina Panthers for taking advantage of that.
this was a great bounce back game for Kyle Allen, especially after losing last week to the 49ers. He took a team that, and realistically, is almost the exact same kind of mirror image as his team and the Titans, that sat there and did everything better than they did. They created turnovers, and they made opportunities on those turnovers. They ran the ball better than what the Titans did. The defense played better than the Titans did. They literally just did everything better than what the Titans were doing. More credit all to the Carolina Panthers and what they put up to this afternoon. And it's not a knock on the Titans. I think they held as long as they possibly could. It's just the offense never got rolling. And that's what hurt them. It was the fact that they
were moving the ball.
It's the fact that they were constantly behind on the scoreboard.
Sure, but the Titans were moving the ball, and this is part of the reason I'm not upset, because there's a lot of weeks where you make a couple fewer mistakes and you're in this game. 20-30, it's a 10-point loss, but again, the Titans could have been in this one if they wouldn't have made so many mistakes early. Ryan Tannehill threw for 331 yards, which when was the last time you said Marcus Mariota threw for 330 yards without overtime? It doesn't happen. Even though he had two turnovers today. This is still encouraging stuff if you're a Titans fan. This is still stuff that you're like, even though we didn't win today, they're moving the ball. They're making a couple mistakes, but they're moving the ball. They're playing decent on defense. There was a couple early turnovers that really set them back, where there was 17-0 going into halftime. The missed field goals didn't help either, but Suckup just got off of IR. I don't think the Titans are in that bad of a spot. Again, the Titans did okay. Now let me talk about the Panthers, because I'm not trying to just dominate my team.
Well, I think I just did talk about them. I mean, that's my whole point was what you were just getting at. You went about the Titans, so I talked about the Panthers, and then you went back to the Titans once more.
And now I'm going to go back to the Panthers once more and we'll move on.
If you would like to go to the Panthers.
So we're fully covered.
That's fine. Go ahead. Go for it.
Kyle Allen did okay today. 17-32 is not the ideal completion percentage, but I will say this about him. He made some great throws, and then he had some bad throws. This is what you see out of a young quarterback. He had a few that definitely should have been intercepted. Malcolm Butler missing probably the easiest interception of the season. As well as Adoree Jackson coming up short on a pick that he probably could have played different on 3rd and long. Still, the kid had a good game. He looked sharp at times. This is something that, again, there's a reason the Panthers are in it, is because they're getting some quarterback play out of Kyle Allen, where there were plays where he looked unstoppable. He threaded the needle on some that looked really, really nice, especially a couple passes to Olsen. Looked very, very good out of Kyle Allen. This is why I think they need to consider keeping him the quarterback, even if Cam Newton comes back 100% healthy. Tyler says, where is the Derrick Henry that we've seen run for 1 billion yards last year in one game? The problem is the Titans' offensive line is being dominated left, center, and right, pretty much all over the board, especially the interior of the line has been atrocious this year, so they're scared to death to get a slow starting runner like Derrick Henry the ball too many times. They have the most negative plays from scrimmage in any team in the league. This is why you're not seeing them run quite as much. They're trying to throw a little bit, run some quick slants, that kind of stuff, to get the ball out of there because the offensive line can't hold. That's why you're not seeing Derrick Henry right now.
Yeah, it's true.
In the same capacity. Kenny also says he feels so bad for Henry, he deserves better. Well, hopefully he doesn't decide to move on from the team when his contract comes up. Hopefully they find a team-friendly agreement that he can come up with, and they can keep Henry a little bit longer term. Tyler says McCaffrey looked like a beast today, just like every other Sunday, right? Mm-hmm. The guy's a monster. I'll give him credit. Yes. I know Jarrell Casey wasn't in there, but Jarrell Casey doesn't keep him from 142 yards to 65. Not single-handedly. Yeah. 3rd quarter, we ran out of juice.
Yep.
That's okay. We'll move on. Let's talk about our next game, which is the Lions and the Raiders.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about how the Raiders get another mentality win, man. Big win here from another division rival. Is this the threat to overtake the Chiefs in the AFC West, if there is one?
Not a division rival.
For the Chiefs. Talking about your team. Shifting gears. Stay with me.
Okay.
We're shifting out west.
Yeah. To be honest, this game kind of shocked me, to be honest with you. I knew that Josh Jacobs was going to be running the ball consistently. I think that's kind of now the bread and butter that the Raiders had. They're going to live and die off of this young man and what he can do for them. And when he is not getting holes to run the ball in, they're going to try to throw the ball around. And so far, every time they've had to do that, they struggled doing it. So when he can finally get that rock going forward, north and south, this is when this team is going to explode and put up points and be able to beat some of these teams. This was a close game. This was a nail-biter. It just never went to the favor of the Lions. I still want to talk about what the Lions have offensively. I think that this team could still be good, but it is all now the fact that they can't run the ball. After the loss of Kerryon Johnson, the likes of Ty Johnson and a company just is not the same. They're not the same kind of player. It's a loss. I thought that they would be able to handle the loss through committee, but it seems like they're not going to at least. They're not even give the guys a chance. How many times did Matthew Stafford throw the ball? I mean, it was It was quite a bit. I don't know if you had that written down.
I don't have it in front of me, but I'll tell you in a second.
It's, they were consistently throwing the ball, and they looked good doing it. The problem is the Raiders would get the ball, and they would tote down the field slowly, taking up time of possession and putting up another touchdown, causing the Lions to have to try to repeat themselves. And it's one of the most toughest things to do is to put up points quickly when you're constantly doing it one after another. It was a struggle. And
41 for Stafford.
I knew he threw it a lot. I just didn't have it in front of me.
But that's like classic Matt Stafford, right? If he doesn't throw 40 times, you're like, what happened?
But that's what they're getting away from this
Sure.
year. And now that the fact that Kerryon Johnson's hurt,
we're back to business.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
I'll give you this. Derek Carr had a decent day, throwing for almost 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. I think, again, this is a mentality win. The Lions have been the team that snatches defeat from the jaws of victory. The Raiders have been the team that snatches victory from the jaws of defeat. I think John Gruden, for however much criticism you want to lay on them and the rebuilding job they did and trading away all that talent, he's done a good job of getting the guys that they do have on pace to win games. I think that's what happened here. And that's why I took them this week. I said, I think this is going to be the game that mentality wins out. When you're talking about close games like this, I think the better coached team, and this is not necessarily a knock against Patricia because I like what the Lions have done, won this game. I think the team that was more ready to win and more fired up, whatever you want to call it, was the team that walked away with the victory here.
Yeah, absolutely. Ian says, dang it. It might be time to admit he was wrong. The Lions will not win the North thanks to a few bad calls.
But it wasn't bad calls today. I think when you look at it, this wasn't just bad calls. This was them playing a team that isn't necessarily... It's kind of in the same spot where they've got a little bit of talent now. They spent a lot of draft picks. They've spent a lot of capital. They're getting better. Both these teams are. So what did it come down to? It came down to coaching. And I think John Gruden just had everybody fired up more than a second-year head coach like Matt Patricia was ready to have the Lions fired up. They have been the team that consistently can't quite finish. And that's what happened again today. They couldn't quite finish against the Raiders.
Kenny was excited. He had Josh Jacobs in his lineup today. And then Corey says no because the Chargers will beat the Raiders this Thursday. I can only hope so, man. And then Tyler goes off and says, how did Williams look today?
We're talking about Damian Williams because he had 125 yards on the ground thanks to a 91-yard touchdown run.
Well, yeah.
Minus that, not a great day.
I was going to ask what Williams he was talking about. So,
that is a good question. I'm not 100% sure.
It is Damian. He looked really good.
Maybe Tyrell Williams? He might have been asked about Tyrell Williams for the Raiders. That would be a little more topical. But
I don't know what he. I don't know.
I'll tell you that here too. But go ahead and keep going. We'll talk about our next game, which is Tampa Bay and Seattle. Is it a black mark against Seattle that they had to take the Buccaneers to overtime? Because the Bucs played well today again.
Yeah, their defense didn't show up the first half. There's no doubt about it. When the Bucs put up 21 points, it was definitely kind of a shun on the Seahawks defense. Go ahead and answer.
Tyrell Williams was 3 for 48.
Okay.
Not the best day. No touchdowns.
Yeah.
Coming back from injury, but still, you're not going to dominate every week unless you're a top 5 or top 10 wide receiver, right?
Right. So going back to this game, obviously the Seahawks defense did not show up, but this is what a good team does. Even if they get behind, they have a chance to come back. I mean, it took all the way to overtime for them to beat the Bucs. And even Jameis Winston played a really good game. He wasn't turning the ball over consistently. He did, he was moving the ball down. He utilized his weapons. Mike Evans had a great game. But just when you get into a throwing match with Russell Wilson, in my opinion, one of the best throwing quarterbacks in this league, it's hard to beat him. Yeah. Because he finds so many weapons out there. Almost 400 yards, 4 touchdowns. I mean, the guy just
5 touchdowns. If you
5
one in
touchdowns.
overtime.
Oh, that's one in overtime. This guy just went off. It's hard to outshoot him.
Yeah, I mean, Russell Wilson's the guy that when you need him to show up, like today, where they threw 43 yards, he can. But the Seahawks' game plan is almost always, hey, we'll throw when we need to, we'll run when we don't. I'll give credit to the Buccaneers offense or the Buccaneers defense. Even though Chris Carson had 105 yards on the ground, this wasn't just typical Seahawks fare where they dominated the clock and just ran at somebody out. And they won by 9 points because the ground game just controlled the clock the whole time. The Bucs did a good job of staying in this. I mean, like you said, Jameis Winston had a much better bounce-back game today.
Yes.
Still not good enough to beat the Seahawks, even though they came really close to doing it. The Seahawks got the ball first in overtime, I believe, and just marched down the field, scored a touchdown with Russell Wilson. That was game over. They've been better than I thought they were, Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
But it's still clearly not enough, right?
Absolutely. Tyler Lockett went off. I'm happy he did. Ian says, it wasn't easy watching Tampa play good football, but then remember they were the Bucks and lost. Kenny says he was actually impressed with Winston this week. He looked pretty good out there, yes, and in a very tough atmosphere being up in Seattle as well.
Speaking of remembering who you are, the Browns lost today. 24-19 against the Denver Broncos, who, Drew, I'll give you credit. We didn't pick them today, but we talked about it, right? We thought about it.
We did.
I'll give you that kind of credit, where how do you bet on either one of these teams, honestly, the way they played? We looked at it, we said, surely Odell Beckham, surely Jarvis Landry, surely Baker Mayfield and company
Surely Nick
grab
Chubb.
this win. And yet, here we are, disappointed in the Cleveland Browns yet again.
I got a question for you. Who would you pick right now?
Yeah, 15-1. We might have gone overboard in the offseason.
Philip Lindsay or Nick Chubb?
Nick Chubb.
That's exactly my point
Yeah.
here. I don't think there's anyone on the Browns team that I think you'd pick over offensively over the
Even though Lindsey had the better day today, I still think I'm taking
over
Nick
the
Chubb.
Broncos.
Yeah.
And this is why we picked the Browns, and we were extremely wrong.
Yeah, we said they have all this talent. They've got everything going on for them, and they still cannot seem to find a way to win these games. I mean, if you look at Brandon Allen, 12 of 20, 193, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Good day for a backup. I say that all the time. Joe Flacco sent to the shadow round because he had to say something about his head coaches. Again, Drew, how do you bounce back from that? And yet Brandon Allen does it. He beats the Cleveland Browns. We talked about it before. The Broncos are going to fall in love with this guy. Do they have a legitimate argument to keeping Brandon Allen as a starting quarterback for next season?
I think this is what the Broncos always put themselves into. Somehow, unfortunately for them, they find themselves playing a quarterback that shouldn't be playing.
Right.
And you see some spark of talent, light at the end of the tunnel scenario where, like, this guy could be the future of our organization, and they put money, they put other kind of
resources
behind him,
Yeah.
and it seems to backfire on them. Obviously, we all know that the Broncos really haven't been good without Peyton Manning. Prior to that, it would have been John Elway. So it's been a long time that the Broncos had a stationary quarterback sitting there for a long period of time since Elway. I know Peyton Manning. I get that they went to Super Bowls. I get they have more Super Bowls than my team. I get that. But consistent.
But let's not live in the past.
Consistent playing of that position has been more for the Kansas City Chiefs versus it has for the Broncos. And that's what I'm saying. The Broncos had to figure out what's going on. And to me, when Brandon Allen played the way he did, it just reminded me of all the other guys that, like Jake Locker. You brought up a couple good names as well.
We're talking about Broncos quarterbacks?
Broncos quarterbacks.
Paxton Lynch, not Jake Locker. Those are Titans quarterback. Thank you for rubbing that.
Jay
one.
Locker.
Oh, okay.
Or Jay Cutler. I'm
Jay
sorry.
Cutler. Yeah.
Cutler. That was the name I was going for. But,
Yeah.
I mean, it's, you have all these players that seem to do well for them, and then they sit there and put time into them, and they never pan out. And it just sucks. Is Drew Lock your future? Is Brandon Allen your future? It's something else right now.
I totally agree with you. As for the Browns, this is why you don't give the keys to a first-year head coach, because mentality's huge in the NFL. I think it shot the Lions in the foot today. It shot the Browns in the foot like every week this year. I'm kind of with, was it Tyler, saying that, isn't it funny at the beginning of the season people were saying the Browns were going to win the Super Bowl, and now they're a dumpster fire? You can never count on these super teams in the offseason, right? We've been pumping the brakes since day one on the Cleveland Browns. Pretty much since they traded for Odell Beckham. We were like, hold on. Anytime you're like ready to anoint somebody in the offseason and they're not the New England Patriots, you need to relax.
But we thought they weren't going to be this bad of a dumpster
No,
fire.
we didn't. We didn't. I'll give you credit. But who did? Who told you that the Browns are going to have 2 wins by week 8? By week 9?
Week 9.
Have gone on their bye and have 2 wins.
Besides just the fact that it's a division rival and you don't like them.
Right.
We truly thought they'd have 2 wins right now.
Kenny's saying Baker Mayfield should focus more on his quarterback career than doing commercials. I understand the idea of making money off the field, but at some point, yes, you're being paid to be an NFL quarterback. It's the reason people want you in those commercials. Baker Mayfield hasn't been very good this year.
To be honest, Kenny, as long as he's making it during the offseason and he has nothing to do with his team, I don't hate it.
But it
is
does,
what it is.
right? It's slipping.
We see it. We see it more.
Right.
Because it keeps coming out. But you got to remember,
If
he
this-
filmed these in
Sure.
a short period of time where
But if this was... Hear me out
where
here.
he has not have to worry about it.
Hear me out here. If this was him in the offseason and it has nothing to do with it and he's still playing okay and he's not going after reporters every time he gets in front of the media, maybe we forgive it.
That is a different scenario
But this
than making
all
commercials.
sounds like distraction. It does. It all goes together. I don't think it's a different scenario. I think that all goes into it.
Absolutely,
I'm a big star. I'm more important than I am.
The commercials are already filmed. You cannot sit there and say he's.
Well, I'm not saying go back and tell him to delete it. You're going to be a better quarterback.
He's going in there and I'm on my bye week. I'm going to go film a commercial.
But what I do what I do think this is thinking you've made it before you have. And I think that definitely goes into it. Drew, you're a young guy. You're a 22-year-old guy, and everyone wants a piece of you. Everyone wants to throw bags and bags of money at you.
You're not working, you're off,
and you're going to think you're the shit. You're going to think you're the shit. And guess what happened?
That's...
I think it's everything. It's everything. I'm not like, he should never do all that. Social media
outbursts and reporting outbursts are different than him filming commercials during an off season.
It all goes into the attitude.
No,
it does.
God,
it does.
Geez,
Again,
this is completely
different.
different.
Everyone is kissing your ass, and I'm going to roll it back here, okay? But I'm going to finish this point. When everyone's kissing your ass, and commercials are part of that. When everyone wants a piece of Baker Mayfield after you have a great rookie season, that definitely has a huge impact on how you play next year. You need to have the mentality that says, I got to put all that in I got to compartmentalize, Drew. I got to put that in the back seat. Okay, now it's time to play football. I think he's having a hard time compartmentalizing. Like I'm having a hard time saying it. He's having a hard time putting all that stuff in the back seat. It's all together. Even today, like last week, he went off on a reporter who asked him, "Why did you do this at halftime?" I forget what the actual question was. And he's going off on this guy like, "That's the dumbest question I've ever heard because we didn't score." Shut up. Know your role. You're not winning. Answer, even if it's a dumb question. Shut up and answer it, and then get out of there. Throw the old team line out there. It wasn't our day today, Tony.
No, Belichick does the same thing, and I know you're going to.
No, Belichick does the same. Okay, but win games and you can do it.
Me that he's winning Super Bowls. I get it, but no, when you get frustrated when reporters out there, you have every right not to answer the question and get frustrated and leave. That's whatever. My point is,
Cam Newton does that too. And guess what?
What I am arguing is you cannot use. He made a commercial during his offseason to make millions to put in his own pocket is taking him away from playing football. No, he was not playing football at that time. He had no playbook.
We could have been working out. How many guys do off-season stuff?
Who said he wasn't working out?
I'm not saying he's not working out.
Who says he wasn't working?
But here's the thing.
Mahomes was in commercials. Aaron Rodgers is in commercials.
And it's not a problem because they're succeeding, right?
Are those guys not working out?
Well, they're doing their job, right? What's your day job, Drew? Stick to your day job. What is your day job? Those guys are getting the job done, so there's no issue with it.
Baker Mayfield is not working out because he's shooting a commercial.
Well, I'm not saying
you got to be kidding.
When you're this young, you need to be working on your playbook. You need to be working.
You don't have a playbook during the offseason.
You can still work with your receivers. You can do everything you want to under the sun. You know what you're going to run. You're not going to tell me that him going from this guy that everyone doubted in the offseason when he was drafted to now all of a sudden you're the shit and everyone you were Mr. Hype going into this year telling me Baker Mayfield's going to be a great quarterback and everything else.
He can be.
And sure, he still can be, but I think the focus has slipped, and this is part of it. Is it all of it? Am I saying no, he should never do another commercial, and you shouldn't do a commercial till you're 35 and have won Super Bowls? No.
But I know you're not saying that. What I'm saying is you can't use that as...
up. It all adds up. It does. And I think that's part of what's going on with Baker Mayfield. It all adds up. And that's why every time he gets in front of a camera, he's having a meltdown with a reporter or something, where he's walking away from something.
That's a different scenario than shooting a commercial.
Yes, it's not all the same. One is worse than the other. But do I think that the commercials, it has no impact in it? I don't, because that's human psychology.
I will tell every NFL player to always shoot a commercial during their offseason. Whenever it doesn't affect their play, you go and shoot a commercial, make as much money as you possibly can, because your career in the NFL is so short. It's so minor in your whole lifespan. You need to make as much as you possibly can. And,
I'm not against anyone
don't
making money.
allow any naysayers to ever sit there and tell you because you shot a commercial you can't play ball no more. Your head got too big out there because you got a camera in front of you. No, you have literally done this your whole entire college career moving forward. You played for Oklahoma.
Well, no,
State.
you can't do it in college.
You
remember?
played for Oklahoma. You've had plenty of
so they're
cameras
doing it under
in
the
front
table.
of you.
Okay, all right. Now we're going into Wednesday.
Hold on,
night.
You've had plenty of cameras in front of you. This is nothing new to you. You've already created your A-type personality. This is what most quarterbacks are. They are very A-type personality people. They want everything to be the limelight. And coaches look for those people. Coaches want quarterbacks to be
Well, you don't want Jay Cutler.
leader.
I'll agree with that. You don't want Jay Cutler removed from the sideline.
Someone that's going to sit there and think that they're the best person in that locker room, because that's the kind of personality you want to lead your organization. Don't ever let someone sit there and tell you don't make a commercial because it takes you away from football. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
I'm not even saying he shouldn't do it, but you can't tell me that it might not have impacted him mentally from that standpoint when you're that young, because I think it has. Am I saying don't do it?
Did
no,
you
because
watch that
hold on.
guy when
No,
he
let
was
me. You just
drafted?
talked for 20 minutes. Now it's my turn. All right. Just because it has a negative impact on your game doesn't necessarily mean you don't need to do it. Because, like you said, your NFL career could be short. You could take a bad hit tomorrow. That could be it. I'm not saying don't chase the money. I've always been the guy who says go ahead and chase the money because you never know when this is going to end. But to Kenny's point, what he was talking about in the offseason, can this have a negative impact on a young, egotistical quarterback that now has no proven leader on him? Yes, it 100% can. And that's 100% my point.
Nah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I guess we'll agree to disagree. A couple more of these comments, and then we'll move on. Kenny says, two people that should shut their mouths, Taylor Lewan and Baker Mayfield.
I was going to say, true,
I haven't seen Taylor Lewan in any commercials yet, but if he was, I'd be complaining about that too. Tyler says, the problem with Baker Mayfield is he still lives in a camper in the Browns parking lot to this day. Doesn't help. I'll agree with you there. All right, we'll move on. Let's talk about our next game here.
We're not going to get divorced. Trust me. We do this even when the camera's not on. Trust me. Admit it.
Admit what?
We do this when the camera's not
all
even
the
on.
time. All the time. Constantly. That's why we're like, let's put this on camera. All right. Are we ready to talk about our last game?
Yeah, let's talk.
And then we'll go into Sunday night football that's almost over already.
Right. Man, you all need to be on the Skip and Shannon show. Love it, Ray. Thanks, man. It's, yeah, we fight like we're brothers, no doubt.
No doubt about it. All right.
Let's move
I don't
on.
even know who we have left because I can't see.
Green Bay and the Chargers.
Green Bay and the Chargers. What a letdown. That's all I can say. What a letdown. Good night, everybody. The Packers are supposed to be a Super Bowl team, and they're losing to Fool's Gold.
Foosball.
Foosball. It's the devil, Andrew.
It's the devil.
Is it just a bad week for the Packers? Is this something you recover from? Or is this maybe the cracks that we're starting to see? Like, Kansas City gave them a run for their money, and you'd think Aaron Rodgers versus Matt Moore, you should have the clear advantage there.
Right.
Now you're losing to the Chargers. Are we starting to see some cracks in the armor for the Green Bay Packers?
All I heard was it's a trap game. It's a trap game. And I think it finally went to their head that was a trap game.
And they fell into the trap that they already knew to look out for.
Yeah, I literally think that's the case.
I'm with Kenny. What happened to him?
What Aaron Rodgers, in the half had like, what was it, like 61 throwing yards, like 71 throwing yards? I mean, it was trash.
Yeah, we tried. Yeah, cut him. But I'm with you. It was not an Aaron Rodgers performance.
Get rid of Aaron Rodgers. That one throw in the end zone to Jamal Williams,
Forget
that was
about it.
luck.
Forget about it. I will say this about the Chargers. They showed up, and this is kind of like the Chargers' MO, where they'll win these big games, and they'll show up. They have the mentality when they need to have it in the big games, and then they wind up losing the close games to opponents they should just blow out of the water. So
Right.
I'm not sure how I feel about this game. I'm not going to tell you the Chargers are back. They're 4-5 right now. They're trying to run down the Chiefs, who are likely to have Patrick Mahomes back next week, or if not, shortly after that.
Right.
The Raiders are ahead of them. So obviously things aren't going so well. I don't know. This is a good win in a bad season. That's what I have to say. As for the Packers, it's a bad loss, but it's a good thing the Vikings have lost too. You've already played the Chiefs. The Bears, I think, still have to. Who's catching them in this division? Maybe the Vikings can pull it together. Right now, just get back on track next week. Don't worry about it. It's a blip on the radar for both of these teams.
Yeah.
I don't think we see sustained kind of performances from either one of them. The Chargers aren't going to be good now because they won this game.
That's
Packers
exactly
aren't going to be
what I was gonna
bad because they lost this one.
That's exactly what I was going to get at. It's not like the Chargers have now turned around. They're going to win the last little bit of their games, even though they have done that. They have done in the past. I don't think that this is the same team. That defense definitely stepped up, played a really good game. Offensively, I still wouldn't be. I mean, I wasn't. It wasn't like, oh, man, look at that Chargers offense. It was more like, man, look at that Chargers defense.
You're right, definitely.
And that's what really made the difference.
And Kenny says, why was Aaron Jones benched so much? That backfield is so hard to predict. You don't know if it's Jamal Williams. You don't know if it's Aaron Jones on any given week. I'm with you. I probably would like to see a little bit more of a balance, but it's not even Matt LaFleur. They've been doing this for years. Even when McCarthy was there, you don't know which one of these guys is going to get the ball every week. And I guess it just wasn't Aaron Jones' turns. Next week we'll probably see a swing back because they're like, we lost and we didn't give it to Aaron Jones. That's why we lost. Maybe Aaron Jones gets involved more next week. A couple more. Kenny says the Chargers are finding Melvin Gordon. Yes, but we've talked about that's the way you beat the Packers, right? You run it up the gut. You kind of bully this defense. They have great pass rushers, but they probably, since losing Mike Daniels at the beginning of the season, don't have the guts of the defense that are going to stop the runs up the middle. I think Melvin Gordon's the guy who takes advantage of that better. Ray says, not worried about where number one in the NFC. He's not worried about it. They're number one in the NFC North.
Still number one.
Especially with the Vikings losing today. I'm 100% with you.
Yep.
Tyler says he loves when Green Bay loses. I understand that. A lot of people do. Ian also says, love that about his Packers fans, friends. Their mouths are shut this week. Well, This week, sure. But again, if you're going to pick a team to bounce back, I'm taking the Packers before I'm taking the Chargers, right?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, we'll round it out here. Sunday Night Football, Drew.
Game's already started.
We've heard the Ravens have scored, but we haven't seen anything else. Who are you going with here?
I want to pick the Ravens so bad to win this game, and to be honest, it would not shock me if they do, but I just can't pick against the Patriots. I need to catch up. I got a lot of games I've dropped this week. I'm going to pick the Patriots just
Well, I'm not
going to
give you the chance. I'm going to go with the Patriots here, too. I've had a bad week on top of it. I think most people picking games probably have. I think, again, they're the safe gamble. I'm going to go here. I think even though this is at home and Lamar Jackson has done well with the ground game, and I think that's still the way you attack the Patriots defense, eventually, they're going to make some mistakes. Tom Brady in this rushing attack should have no problem running against the Baltimore Ravens. We'll see what happens, though. I don't know. If there's an upset, this is like one of the first and few good games the Patriots are going to have to play all year long.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Monday night, Cowboys-Giants. I said it before. Cowboys got to win it.
Cowboys got to win it. To be honest, I think the Giants are going to make it a game. I think this Giants offense is talented, and they can put up some points, especially with Saquon Barkley being healthy. And we got to remember, him being banged up, he came back a game. I don't even know if he was 100% when he played that game.
Yeah.
I think he is now, or closest as you can be in the middle of the season. I think it's going to be a heavy dose. I know Daniel Jones at some point in time is going to have to chuck the ball around everywhere, but I think it's the Cowboys and just the fact that they're talented far better than every spot that the Giants are. That's going to be the reason why the Cowboys win.
Exactly. And again, they should be able to run, they should be able to throw, they should be able to do whatever they need to do against the Giants. I think the Cowboys need to win it, but they've let me down in the past, Drew. I'm still sticking Cowboys. I'm going to say watch out for this one. This might wind up being just as good of a game as on Monday night as it is on Sunday.
Ian's saying that the Patriots and Ravens game is going to be a tie, but as a Steelers fan, he's rooting for a sinkhole to swallow this game up.
Just hoping Bane walks in the field and just blows everything up. 2009 reference or whatever that was.
That was Hines Ward running the ball at that time, so it was a Steeler player doing that.
Kenny also says even if they slip up, Brady will bring it back in the end. He's also saying the Patriots defense won't lose. I'm there with you. I know, kind of like Ray said, they're down 10-0 right now, but how do you bet against these guys?
I hope that's the case, but I chose the Patriots prior to the show, not knowing that they'd be 10-0. I still had to stick with the Patriots.
I did too. All right, Drew. Final thoughts, man. Before we do some special thanks,
guys,
this week, what were your
guys? It was a great
thing?
show. I really enjoyed the Vikings and Chiefs game. I know we all know I'm a Chiefs fan, but as far as the game goes, that was one of the better ones this week for sure. I think this game tonight's going to be just as good. I can't wait to have a chance to sit down and watch it. And guys, I appreciate you being here.
And just like always, I'm going to talk about the AFC South. We went into this week saying, wow, what a close division and how much of a nail-biter this is. Now Jacoby Brissett's hurt. Jacksonville and the Titans have fallen to 4-5. And Houston sitting at 6-3, pretty at the top of the division. I think the best race in football, now a 4-horse race just became a 1-horse race. I think the Texans are probably going to be your playoff team from the AFC South. And again, what a way for it to go out. So that's my final thoughts. Let's do some special thanks and get out of here.
Guys, again, thank you for all your comments, likes, and shares. If I missed you, I'm so sorry. But Sharif, Tyler, Chris, Matthew, Ian, Chris again, Kyle, Justin, Michael, Eric, Nate, Frank, Ray, Jonathan, Kenny, Vinny, Gabby, Austin, Corey, Will, Karen. You guys are all awesome. Thank you so much for being part of the show tonight.
We will be back on Tuesday for our variety show to talk about these primetime games as well as everything else going on in the world of sports. We hope you can join us then. Again, 7:45 Eastern, 6:45 Central for Sports Around the Bar. I'm Jake, your bartender. Drew, do you have anything else to say before we get out of here?
Nope.
You sure you don't want to go talk about commercials for a few more minutes?
Make your millions, man.
All right, let's get out of here. We'll see you on Tuesday.
See ya.